The grand hall of Alara Station was built to impress. Its ceiling was so high that clouds of soft light floated under it like slow stars. Tall banners of many worlds hung from silver rails. Every powerful species in the known galaxy had sent someone important. Tonight was a formal gathering, meant to show unity and peace. But there was one empty space that everyone noticed. At the center table, where royalty always sat, one chair remained untouched. The chair beside the alien princess. Princess Elira of the Thalen had arrived early. She wore the deep blue robes of her people, woven with living light that moved gently with her breath. Her crown was small and simple, a sign of humility. She sat straight, her hands folded calmly on her lap. From a distance, she looked perfect. Up close, no one wanted to be near her. Whispers moved through the hall like a cold wind. Don't sit there. She is flawed. She lost control once. She is dangerous. Some said her flaw was in her mind. Others said it was in her soul. No one agreed on the details, but everyone agreed on one thing: stay away. So they did. Seats filled across the hall. Kings, queens, generals, and diplomats laughed and spoke loudly. They shared drinks and stories. But the seat beside Princess Elira stayed empty, like a clear warning sign no one wanted to test. She noticed it. Of course she did. Elira had learned how to notice without reacting. She kept her face calm, her posture perfect. Years of training helped her hide what she felt. Inside, though, the silence hurt more than any insult. She remembered other halls, other gatherings. Once, others had rushed to sit beside her. Once, she had been admired. That was before the bonding incident. No one mentioned it out loud, but everyone remembered. Across the hall, far from the royal table, the human delegation sat together. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy. They were respected for their resilience, but not feared. They were usually ignored. One of them, a man named Aaron Hale, sat quietly with a simple drink in his hand. He wore a plain dark uniform, no medals on display. He was not important by galactic standards, just a support officer assigned to cultural duty. Aaron was not watching the banners or the speeches. His eyes kept drifting back to the center table, to the empty chair. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone was late. But as minutes passed, no one moved toward it. Servers walked around the princess as if there was an invisible wall. Aaron frowned slightly. He watched Princess Elira more closely. She did not look angry. She did not look proud. She looked alone. Humans notice things like that. What's the deal with her? Aaron asked quietly to the woman beside him. The woman stiffened. Don't ask, she whispered. Just don't. Why? She's unstable. That's what they say. One emotional spike, and bad things happen. Aaron looked back at the princess. She was speaking politely to a delegate across the table, keeping her voice soft. Nothing about her seemed unstable. She doesn't look dangerous, he said. That's how it starts, the woman replied. Please, just eat. Aaron nodded, but his mind stayed restless. He had grown up on a crowded station. He knew what it felt like to be avoided. He knew the pain of people deciding who you were without knowing you. The music shifted. A formal announcement echoed through the hall, welcoming all species and honoring Princess Elira's presence. A few guests clapped politely. No one moved closer. Elira's fingers tightened for just a moment. Then she relaxed them again. She told herself she was used to this, that she did not need anyone near her. Still, the empty chair felt heavier with every passing second. Aaron made a decision before he could overthink it. He stood up. The sound of his chair sliding back was quiet, but in that moment, it felt loud. A few nearby humans glanced at him in confusion. Where are you going? Someone whispered. Aaron didn't answer. He began to walk. At first, no one noticed. Then a few heads turned. Conversation slowed. The path he took led straight toward the royal table, toward the empty chair. A murmur spread. Is that a human? What is he doing? His walking to her. Guards near the center table straightened. Their hands moved closer to their weapons, not openly, but enough to be ready. Princess Elira saw him approaching. Her heart skipped. Then it sank. She had seen this before. Someone curious. Someone brave or foolish. They always stop halfway. Always turn away when fear caught up. She prepared herself for that familiar disappointment. Aaron stopped beside the empty chair. Up close, the princess was even more striking. Not just in appearance, but in presence. There was a quiet strength around her, like a calm ocean hiding deep currents. She looked up at him, her eyes sharp but tired. For a moment, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Aaron smiled. It was not a bold smile, not a mocking one, just a small, honest smile, the kind humans shared to show peace. "May I sit here?" he asked simply. The question was so ordinary that it felt strange in such a grand place. Princess Elira blinked. No one had asked her that in a long time. She glanced at the empty chair, then at him. She searched his face for fear, for hidden intent. She found none. Slowly, she nodded. Aaron pulled the chair back and sat down. The reaction was instant. Gasps, shocked silence, angry whispers. The guards froze, waiting for a sign of danger. Nothing happened. Elira did not explode with power. She did not lose control. She did not even flinch. She sat there, heart racing, trying to understand what had just changed. Beside her, a human sat calmly, as if this was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Across the hall, eyes watched closely, some with fear, some with anger, some with something new, curiosity. And for the first time that night, the empty chair was empty no longer. The silence did not break right away. For a few long seconds, the grand hall of Alara Station felt frozen in time. Music faded into the background. Conversation stopped in the middle of words. Every eye was fixed on the same sight. A human sitting beside the alien princess. Princess Elira felt it first. The pressure in the air. The sharp attention of hundreds of powerful beings. Her people were sensitive to emotion, and the hall was full of fear, shock, and anger. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Beside her, the human man sat calmly, his hands resting on the table. He did not move. He did not look around. He acted as if he truly belonged there. That alone felt dangerous. The nearest royal guard took a step forward. His armor shimmered with energy, ready to react. Another guard mirrored the movement on the opposite side of the table. Elira raised one finger slightly. The guard stopped. She did not look at them. Her eyes stayed on the human. "You understand where you are sitting," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but there was a warning beneath it. Not a threat, a truth. Aaron turned toward her. Up close, he could see the fine lines of tension around her eyes. Not from anger, from constant control. "Yes," he replied, "I think so." Most beings would have added an apology, or an excuse. Aaron did neither. Elira studied him. Humans were strange. Their emotions moved fast, but their faces were often honest. This one showed nervousness, but not fear. "Others avoid this seat for a reason," she said. "I know," Aaron answered. "You may be harmed." "I know that too." That made her pause. "Then why?" she asked. The question slipped out before she could stop it. Aaron thought for a moment. Not long. Just enough. "Because no one should eat alone at a table like this," he said. The words were simple. They landed harder than any insult Elira had heard that night. Around them, whispers started again. "He's insane. He wants attention. He doesn't understand her flaw." At the far end of the hall, members of the High Council leaned closer together. Screens lit up softly in front of them, gathering data, emotional readings, energy fluctuations, all focused on the princess. Elira felt a familiar tension rise inside her chest, the part of her that others feared, the unstable wave of power that had ruined her reputation. She pressed her fingers together, grounding herself. Nothing happened. No surge. No loss of control. She frowned slightly. Normally, intense emotion made the pressure worse. Being watched like this should have triggered it. But it didn't. She glanced at Aaron again. He was sipping his drink, unaware of the data streams flashing about her condition. "You are very calm," she said. Aaron gave a small shrug. "I've been yelled at by drill officers twice your size. This is quieter." For a moment, Elira almost smiled. Almost. A tall alien noble across the table leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Princess, is this human under your protection?" The question carried weight. If she said yes, she would be responsible for any outcome. Elira hesitated. Aaron met her eyes. He did not ask. He did not expect. "I did not invite him," she said carefully. He asked. "I allowed it." Murmurs spread again. The noble's eyes narrowed. "Then you accept the risk?" "I accept responsibility for my own seat," Elira replied. The noble leaned back, displeased. The meal continued, but the mood had changed. Dishes were served with caution. Servants avoided direct contact with the princess, but now they hesitated near the human as well. Aaron noticed the tension. "Did I cause trouble?" he asked softly. Elira looked at him in surprise. "Yes," she said honestly. "A great deal." He nodded. "I'm sorry." She watched his face. He meant it. But, he added, "I don't regret it." That was unexpected. "You should," she said. "People fear me for a reason." "So they say." "They are not all wrong," Elira continued. "I lost control once. I nearly injured someone important." Aaron did not react the way others did. He did not lean away. He did not stiffen. "What happened?" he asked. The question was dangerous. Elira had learned not to explain herself. Explanations never helped. They only gave fear more detail. "I was overwhelmed," she said slowly. "Our bonding ritual links emotion to power. Mine reacted too strongly." "That sounds painful," Aaron said. "Not dangerous. Not unstable. Painful." Her hands trembled slightly. She hid them beneath the table. It was, she admitted. Data screens across the hole flickered. Readings showed something impossible. Her emotional levels were high. Her power output was low. The council members exchanged uneasy looks. Elira felt it too. The strange balance inside her. Being seen without being judged was stabilizing. She did not understand it. Across the table, another guest laughed loudly, trying to break the tension. Life slowly returned to the hole, but eyes still drifted back to the strange pair at the center. A human, an avoided princess. Aaron leaned back slightly. "If it helps," he said, "humans mess up all the time. We don't exile each other for it. Usually." Elira let out a soft breath that might have been a laugh. "Your species is very forgiving," she said. "Not always," Aaron replied, "but we're good at sitting with people others won't." She looked at him more closely now. Not as a risk, not as a variable, as a person. "You may be watched after tonight," she warned him. "I figured," he said. "You may be blamed if something goes wrong." He met her gaze again. "Then I'll stay, just in case." The words settled between them. Around the hole, fear slowly mixed with something new. Uncertainty, because nothing was going wrong. And that, somehow, felt more unsettling than disaster. The dinner continued, but the grand hall no longer felt the same. Music played softly again. Guests spoke, laughed, and lifted their cups, yet the rhythm was forced. Every few moments, eyes returned to the center table, to the alien princess, to the human beside her. Princess Elira felt the attention like heat on her skin. She had lived under that kind of gaze since the day everything changed. Aaron noticed her stiffness. Humans were not strong in many galactic ways, but they were good at reading small signs. A tight jaw, a shallow breath, hands held too still. "You don't have to talk," he said quietly. "I'm fine with silence." Elira looked at him. Most beings fill silence with fear, all with questions meant to protect themselves. "You are different," she said. He gave a small smile. "I've been told that, usually not as a compliment." That almost made her smile again. Almost. The lights above the table dimmed slightly as the formal meal moved into its second stage. This was usually the moment when alliances were discussed and futures decided. Elira usually endured it alone. Tonight, someone was beside her. A small tremor passed through her chest. Not power. Memory. "You asked what happened," she said suddenly. Aaron turned to her, surprised but attentive. "Only if you want to tell me." She took a slow breath. "My people bond young," she began. "Emotion and energy are connected for us. When done correctly, the bond gives us balance. And when it goes wrong? Aaron asked gently. Elira's eyes lowered. Then the energy listens to the wrong feelings. The whole faded for her. In her mind, she was somewhere else. A white chamber. Elders watching. Symbols glowing in the air. I was nervous, she continued. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted them to be proud. Her voice stayed calm, but her hands tightened again. The ritual reacted to my fear. Power surged. I lost control for less than a breath. Aaron waited. It was enough, Elira said. A council aide was injured. Not killed, but important. She looked up, expecting the usual reaction. Aaron's expression did not change. That sounds like an accident, he said. Her breath caught. In the galaxy, she replied, accident from royalty are called warnings. He nodded slowly. On oath, we call them mistakes. That word felt strange. Softer than flaw. Lighter than danger. I was never allowed to try again, Elira said. They said I was unstable. That my emotions made me unsafe to bond. Across the hall, council members watched closely. Sensors tracked her emotional rise. They prepared for the spike. It did not come. Instead, her energy levels flattened. Calmed. Data officers frowned. Aaron leaned forward slightly. Do you believe them? Elira hesitated. No one had asked her that before. I learned to, she said. He nodded, understanding more than she expected. People tell you something long enough, it starts to feel true, he said. Even if it's not. She studied his face. Why are you here? She asked. Truly. He exhaled. Because I saw an empty chair, and someone pretending it didn't hurt. The words landed quietly, but they landed deep. Elira's control wavered for a moment, not toward danger, toward emotion. The living light in her robes pulsed once. Across the hall, alarms almost triggered, then settled. The council stared at the screens. This is impossible, one of them whispered. They had isolated her, watched her, measured her. None of it had helped. A single human conversation was doing what years of caution had failed to do. At the table, another alien noble leaned in, his tone sharp. Princess, you are sharing sensitive history with a foreigner. Elira straightened. He asked, she said, and I chose to answer. The noble's eyes flicked to Aaron with open dislike. Humans do not understand our risks. Aaron met his gaze calmly. I understand loneliness. The noble scoffed and turned away. Elira felt something inside her shift. Not power. Choice. For years, she said softly to Aaron, they watched me to see if I would fail again. And did you? He asked. No, she said, but they never stopped waiting. He leaned back in his chair. Then maybe they're the ones with the problem. She looked at him, truly looked at him now. You speak very freely to a princess, she noted. He smiled. You speak very freely to a human. For a moment, the title between them felt less important. The whole buzz again, but differently now. Less fear, more tension. Because the story everyone believed was starting to crack. Elira felt it. The secret behind her flaw was no longer hidden. It was never power. It was fear. And for the first time in a long while, fear was not in control. The shift in the grand hall was slow, but it was real. Fear had ruled the room when the human first sat down. Now fear was changing into something sharper. Suspicion, anger, pride wounded by the idea that everything they believed about Princess Elira might be wrong. And wounded pride was dangerous. Across the center table, Lord Varric of the Krell Dominion leaned forward. He was tall, armored in dark crystal plates, his eyes cold and calculating. His people valued control above all else. He had never trusted Elira, and he hated being proven wrong. So, Varric said loudly, making sure the entire table heard him, "This is a solution now? A human babysitter." Laughter rippled from a few corners of the hall. Nervous laughter. Cruel laughter. Elira stiffened. She had heard insult before, many times. But tonight, they landed harder. Because someone was sitting beside her. Someone who had chosen to see her as more than a problem. Aaron felt the change instantly. The tone of Varric's voice, the way the room leaned in. Elira kept her voice calm. I require no babysitter, Lord Varric. Varric smiled thinly. Your history suggests otherwise. The word cut deep. Around the hall, eyes sharpened. This was no longer a dinner. It was a test. Elira felt the familiar pressure rise in her chest. Her people's energy reacted to emotion, and humiliation was a powerful trigger. The living light in her robes began to glow brighter. Across the hall, warning symbols flickered on council screens. Aaron noticed the glow. He also noticed how Elira's shoulders tightened, how her breathing shortened. Varric saw it too. There, Varric said, pointing. Already unstable. Already reacting. This is why we do not sit beside her. Silence followed his words. Heavy, expectant. Elira closed her eyes for a brief moment. She had been here before. This was the moment when fear won. When control slipped. When everyone would say, we told you so. She opened her eyes again. Aaron was watching her. Not the glow. Not the room. Huh. You don't have to prove anything, he said quietly. Varric laughed. She already is. Elira felt the surge push harder. Energy pressed against the limit she had built inside herself for years. The room waited for her to break. Aaron stood up. The sound was small, but it shattered the moment. Every eye snapped to him. Varric's smile vanished. Sit down, human. Aaron did not. He turned slightly, placing himself between Varric and Elira without touching her. The move was calm, deliberate. You're not afraid of a power, Varric sneered. That makes you ignorant. Aaron met his gaze. No, it makes me honest. Gasps echoed. No human spoke to a Krell lord that way. She was humiliated, Aaron continued, his voice steady. And you called it safety. Varric's eyes burned. You do not understand the risk. I understand people, Aaron replied. And I understand what happens when you treat someone like a threat long enough. The pressure inside Elira wavered. The glow around her dimmed slightly. Council sensors spiked again, then dropped. Officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Varric's voice hardened. If she loses control, human, the blood will be on your species. Aaron nodded once. Then blame me. That did it. The hall erupted in whispers. Outrage. Shock. Elira stared at Aaron, stunned. No one had ever taken responsibility for her before. They had only feared consequences. You should sit, she said softly. This is not your burden. He looked back at her. You've carried it alone long enough. The words struck deeper than any insult Varric had thrown. Her hands trembled. Then, slowly, they steadied. The energy inside her shifted, not exploding outward, not collapsing inward, balancing. The living light in her robe settled into a gentle glow. Across the hall, the council alarm shut down. Silence returned, thicker than before. Varric looked around, realizing something was wrong. Nothing had happened. No surge. No loss of control. Just a princess standing tall. And a human standing beside her. This proves nothing, Varric said sharply, though his confidence had cracked. It proves enough, Elira said. Her voice was calm. Clear. Strong. She stood. The movement drew every eye. Power hummed quietly around her, controlled and steady. For years, she continued, you have waited for me to fail again. Tonight, you pushed. She turned slightly, gesturing to Aaron. And still, I stand. Varric said nothing. He had no answer. Elira sat back down. Aaron followed a second later. The hall remained silent, but the feeling had changed again. Fear was gone. Now there was unease, because something they believed to be dangerous had just shown restraint, and something they believed to be weak, a human, had just shown courage. Across the hall, council members exchanged looks. This was no longer about a flawed princess. This was about a truth they had ignored. And they were not ready to face what came next. The silence after Princess Elira sat down felt heavier than any noise before it. No one spoke. The grand hall of Elira Station, once filled with confidence and judgment, now held its breath. Every noble, every guard, every council member waited for what should have come next. The collapse, the loss of control. It was a moment they had prepared for, trained for, feared. And it did not happen. Elira felt it inside herself, the place where her power usually pressed, where emotion turned sharp and wild. It was quiet, not empty, not locked away, balanced. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat steadied. The living light in her robes moved gently again, like a calm tide. She had never felt this during public scrutiny before. Beside her, Aaron sat back down, careful not to draw attention. He did not look proud. He did not look relieved. He simply stayed. That mattered more than anything. Across the hall, council technicians stared at their displays in confusion. Lines of data flattened where spikes were expected. Warning thresholds were never crossed. This is the highest emotional exposure she has faced in years, one officer whispered. She should be destabilizing. She isn't, another replied. She's regulating. At the royal table, a few nobles shifted uncomfortably. They did not like what they were seeing. A feared truth was safer than an uncertain one. Elira lifted her cup, hand steady. That small detail did not go unnoticed. Lord Varric watched her closely, his expression dark. His challenge had failed, and worse, it had revealed something he did not want revealed. This change is nothing, he said coldly. One moment does not erase history. Elira met his gaze. She did not rise to the insult. She did not flare with emotion. No, she said calmly, but it questions it. Varric snorted. You expect us to rewrite years of caution because you remained stable for a few minutes. Aaron spoke before Elira could respond. Minutes matter, he said, especially when everyone expects seconds. The whole murmured again. Varric turned toward him, anger sharp in his eyes. You presume much for someone with no standing here. Aaron nodded. That's true. I don't have standing. I just have eyes. Elira felt a strange warmth at his words. Not pride, not fear, support. It settled her further. The meal continued again. Slowly, dishes arrived. Drinks were poured. But the energy in the hall had shifted permanently. No one laughed easily now. Some watched Elira with narrowed eyes. Others watched with doubt, and a few, very few, watched with hope. Elira noticed one of the younger delegates leaning forward, studying her with curiosity instead of fear. Another whispered to a companion, confused by what they were seeing. For the first time, her presence created questions instead of certainty. Aaron leaned slightly closer. How are you feeling? He asked softly. She considered the question carefully. I feel. She searched for the right word. Present. He smiled. That's usually a good sign. She nodded. For my people, it is rare. Across the hall, a senior counselor stood. The tall figure raised a hand, calling for attention. The events of this evening have been unexpected, the counselor said. Princess Elira, we are observing irregular stability in your readings. The words were carefully chosen. Elira inclined her head. I am aware. The counselor hesitated. Do you attribute this change to any specific factor? All eyes turned to her. She felt the weight of the moment. She could protect the system. Say nothing. Accept silence again. Or she could speak. She turned slightly toward Aaron. Presence, she said simply. And respect. A ripple moved through the hall. The counselor's gaze followed hers to the human. A single human, someone scoffed. Aaron looked uncomfortable. I'm not doing anything special. Elira shook her head gently. That is precisely the point. The council exchanged troubled looks. Their instruments did not lie. Isolation had failed. Control had failed. Something simple was working. Varric rose again, his voice sharp. This is manipulation. Emotional dependency is a known destabilizer. Elira met his challenge calmly. Then why am I more stable than ever? Varric had no answer. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was exposing. Elira felt something shift inside her that had nothing to do with power. Confidence. Not borrowed. Not forced. Earned. She straightened her shoulders. For years, she said clearly, you defined me by my worst moment. Tonight, you saw me choose restraint. She looked around the hall. That choice was always mine. No one interrupted her. Aaron watched quietly, aware that history was changing around him. Elira sat back down, heart steady. The moment she should have broken had passed, and in its place stood something far more dangerous to the old order. Proof. Because when fear failed to appear, the galaxy had to face a new question. What if the princess was never broken at all? The Grand Hall did not return to normal after that. It couldn't. Once a belief cracked, it never truly went back to how it was before. The High Council requested a temporary pause in the gathering. Music stopped. Servants withdrew. Transparent energy screens rose quietly around the center of the hall, separating observation from ceremony. Princess Elira felt the shift immediately. This was no longer social. It was official. Princess Elira, the senior counselor said, his voice calm but tense, we are initiating a real-time review of your condition. Elira nodded, as you always do. This time, there was no bitterness in her tone, only clarity. Across the hall, data specialists moved quickly. Readings were compared with archive records from the bonding incident. Emotional spikes, power surges, environmental stresses. The results appeared side by side, and they did not match the old conclusions. Murmurs spread among the council ranks. This level of emotional stimulation should be unsafe. Her power output is regulated. Not suppressed, regulated. That word carried weight. Suppression was control imposed from outside. Regulation was balanced from within. Aaron sat quietly beside Elira, saying nothing. He felt the attention on him, heavy and uncomfortable. Humans were used to being watched, but not like this. A counselor turned toward him. Human, what training do you have in emotional modulation? Aaron blinked. None. The counselor frowned. Are you influencing her state intentionally? No, Aaron said honestly. I'm just talking to her. That answer caused more discomfort than confidence. Elira felt it then. A slow, clear realization. They studied my power, she said calmly, but never my environment. Several council members stiffened. They isolated me, she continued, measured me, restricted me, watched me fail in silence. She gestured lightly toward Aaron and ignored the effect of connection. One counselor resisted. Emotional proximity was considered a risk factor. Yes, Elira replied, because you only studied Faye. Silence followed. Across the screens, long-term data restructured itself. Patterns appeared where chaos was once assumed. Her instability correlated not with emotion alone, but with isolation under scrutiny. A younger analyst spoke without thinking. She wasn't destabilizing. She was reacting. The words hung in the air. The senior counselor closed his eyes briefly. That classification, he said slowly, would invalidate years of policy. Elira met his gaze. Then the policy was wrong. For the first time, no one challenged her. Lord Varric stood stiffly at the edge of the council space, his expression unreadable. The truth being revealed was not just scientific. It was moral. You labeled me flawed, Elira said, her voice steady but firm. You taught the galaxy to fear me. You made avoidance seem like wisdom. She paused. And you were wrong. The words were not shouted. They did not need to be. Aaron felt the weight of the moment. Entire worlds were built on decisions like this. Decisions made quickly. Defended stubbornly. A counselor turned to him again. Human, why did you sit beside her? Aaron hesitated, then spoke simply, because no one else would. That answer settled like a stone in still water. The council screens dimmed. The senior counselor straightened. The evidence is clear, he announced. Princess Elira's condition is not a flaw. It is a response. Gasps echoed across the hall. She requires emotional grounding, not isolation, the counselor continued. Her stability increases with respectful presence. Elira closed her eyes for a brief moment. Not in relief. In vindication. For years, she had endured suspicion with dignity. Now the truth stood in the open. Varric's voice cut through the moment, sharp and defensive. Even if this is true, the damage is done. Fear cannot simply be undone. Elira turned toward him. No, she said, but responsibility can be acknowledged. The whole waited. The The senior counselor hesitated, then bowed his head slightly. The gesture was small. It was historic. "Princess Elira," he said, "the council recognizes its failure." The word sent shockwaves through the room. Aaron's breath caught. He had not expected that. "Your treatment," the counselor continued, "was based on incomplete understanding. The harm caused is on us." For the first time in years, Elira did not stand alone under judgment. The galaxy was forced to look at itself. She straightened, calm and radiant in her composure. "I do not seek punishment," she said. "I seek change." The council nodded. "The record will be amended," the counselor declared. Publicly. Whispers turned into stunned silence. The truth that shamed the galaxy was now undeniable. A princess was never broken. She was ignored. And it took a human, with no title and no power, to remind the stars what dignity looked like. Only one part remained. What Elira would choose to do next, the grand hall of the Lara station felt different the next morning. The same banners hung from silver rails. The same soft light drifted beneath the high ceiling. But the weight in the air had changed. Fear no longer ruled the space where Princess Elira stood. Respect did. Word of the council's declaration had already spread beyond the station. Messages flowed across the galactic network, repeating the same shocking truth. Princess Elira was never flawed. She had been misunderstood. Elira walked into the hall with calm steps. Her posture was relaxed now, not rigid. The living light in her robes moved freely, responding to her emotions without strain. For the first time, she did not feel like she was being watched for failure. Aaron walked beside her. Not behind, not ahead, beside. Some nobles noticed and stepped back out of old habit. Others hesitated, then nodded respectfully. A few even offered quiet greetings. Elira acknowledged them all. At the center table, the once-avoided chair waited. She paused before sitting. For years, that chair had been a symbol of isolation, a silent reminder of judgment. Aaron noticed her pause. "Want me to sit somewhere else?" he asked gently. She turned to him, surprised. "No," she said. "I want you here." She sat down. Aaron took the seat beside her. No gasps followed. No alarms activated. Instead, something unexpected happened. Another delegate approached. Slowly, carefully, a young alien diplomat, nervous but determined, stopped near the table. He bowed slightly to Elira. "Princess," he said, "may I join you?" The hall went quiet again, not with fear, with anticipation. Elira felt a warm pressure in her chest. She remembered the empty hall, the whispers, the silence that hurt more than words. She smiled. "Yes," she said. The diplomat Saturday. Then another, and another. The empty space that once defined her was gone. Across the hall, members of the High Council watched in silence, not as judges this time, as witnesses. Lord Varric stood at the edge of the room, his authority diminished. He did not approach. He did not speak. The galaxy had moved forward without him. Aaron leaned back slightly, watching the change unfold. "Looks like you're not eating alone anymore." Elira glanced at him. "I was never alone," she said softly. "I just had no one willing to sit." She looked around the table, at faces now filled with curiosity instead of fear. Then she looked back at Aaron. "And you," she continued, "sat when it mattered." He shrugged. "I had a good seat." She laughed. A real laugh this time. Light and free. The sound caught attention across the hall. Many had never heard her laugh before. It changed how they saw her. Later, as the gathering moved into open discussion, the senior counsel approached the table. "Princess Elira," he said, "the council wishes to ask something of you." She raised an eyebrow. "After everything." He nodded respectfully. "Because of everything." Elira listened. "We wish for you to lead the reform on emotional integration protocols," the counselor said. "Your experience and your clarity are needed." Elira considered the offer. Power had never frightened her. Responsibility had. She looked at Aaron. He did not push. He did not advise. He simply smiled. The same simple smile he had worn when he first sat beside her. "I accept," she said. The decision echoed through the hall. A flawed princess had become a leader, not because she proved her strength, but because she showed her humanity. As the gathering came to an end, Elira and Aaron stood together near the exit. The stars beyond the station glowed softly through the wide viewing panels. "Will you stay?" Elira asked quietly. Aaron hesitated, then nodded. "If you want me to." "I do," she said. They walked forward together, side by side. Behind them, the galaxy adjusted to a new truth, that courage does not always rule. Sometimes, it simply sits down and smiles.